All right, guys, whenever you're ready. All right, we got Dave checked in here. If you're not in race 1, you are out to marshal. That'll be Dylan, Tim, Brett, John, and Darren. All right, we will get you guys lined up. It'll be Dave, James, Andy, Mark, and Scott. Once again, Dave, James, Andy, Mark, and Scott. Marshall's ready. Driver's ready. Dave on the tone. James, Andy, Mark, and Scott. Hot lap going to James, 11:64. Blue and white buggy. I'm going to wait for Mark and Scott to hit the loop here, see where we're at. All right, James 26.502, Scott 26.511, Andy 25.501, Mark 511, and Dave on the 23.505. Fastest lap overall going to Andy as he moves in the second. And then 11th. Oh, James just took that over 11.22 fast lap. It is now James, Andy, Scott, Mark, and Dave. It's James setting the pace for us. 26.506 with the fast lap, 11.22. So it's the blue and white in the 1. Green and white is my 2 right now. That is Scott hitting the straight right there. Nope, Mark bounces up to that number 2 spot. Yellow and white. Top 3 drivers. Actually, James is on the 26.504. Mark 25.509. Scott 25.510. Then Dave is on the 23.502. Andy on the 23.503. Halfway point here, 2:30 left to go. James, Scott, Mark, Andy, and Dave.
Two minutes left.
Getting the practice of nice clean passes, guys, and if you lose your line, let the car go. That's how it's going to be run on Saturday evening for the first points race. Minute 30 left on the clock. It is James, Scott, Mark, Andy, and Dave. James 26.503 holding that fast lap. 11.22. Scott 25.505. Mark right behind him 509. Andy now on the 24.507 and Dave on the 24.510.
One minute left.
There it is, 60 seconds left to go. Blue and white buggy hitting the straight. That is my number 1. Here's our number 2, green and white down the straight, and our number 3, yellow and white. James puts down another fast lap, 11.06. 30 seconds left. All right, guys, when I call your name, your race is over. Dave, you are done. Andy, Mark. There we go, Scott and James. So James set the TQ 26.511 with that fast lap, 11.06. Scott took second, 25.502. Mark 24.502. Then we had Andy 24.503 and Dave 24.506. Race 2 up. So it is Dylan, Tim, Brett, John, and Darren. That seems better. Try what again? 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 All right, guys. I'm going to shut down the straight. Let's get you guys lined up. Dylan's going to start us off on this one. It's Dylan, Tim, Brett, John, and Darren. Pretty buggy, Tim. No? Once again, Dylan, Tim, Brett, John, and Darren. It's okay. That's normally how I see his car anyways. All right, drivers ready. Dylan on the tone. Tim. Brett. John. Darren. Hot lap going to Dylan, 12:22. All right, calling it out on Dylan, 25.508 with that fast lap, 12:20. I'm going to wait for the rest of the field here.
4 minutes left.
Darren in the number 2 spot, 24.504. Brett, 23.508. John, 22.501. And Tim on the 25.08. Brett now holding fast lap, 12:20. Darren bounces up to the top. It's Darren, Dylan, Brett, John, and Tim. Orange buggy down the straight is my number 1. .325 left on the clock. Dylan bounces back up to the top, 24.505. Darren, 24.505.3. Brett on the 24.512. John on the 23.501. And Tim on the 21. Here's our leader now. Going down the straight. White, blue, and red with black wheels.
3 minutes left.
John now holding fast lap with the 11.94. .230 left, halfway point. still Dylan. It is now Dylan, Brett, Darren, John, and Tim. Dylan running 24. Sorry, Brett bounces up to the top. 24.506. Dylan 506. Darren now sitting in third. 23.5 flat. John 23.502, and Tim on the 21. Fast lap overall going to John 11.94.
2 minutes left.
It's dead. All right, Dylan's out of this one. White buggy, black wing at the top of my screen, 24.504 right now. John moves into that number 2 spot. Here he is hitting the loop, white, orange, and black, 24.510. Darren in the orange going down the straights, currently sitting in third, 23.501. Minute 25 left to go.
One minute left.
There it is, 60 seconds left to go. Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Darren. Here we go, 10 seconds left on the clock. There's the tone. Brett, you are done.
Car 5
Darren.
is done.
Tim and
Car
John.
5 is done.
Brett's going to take that one, 24.506. John came in behind him, 24.511 with the fast lap overall, 11.73. Darren came in 23.505, and Tim on the 25.14. Yeah, if the guys are ready, I wouldn't mind doing round 1 and 2 back to back for Dylan. Oh, he's staying all night? All right. Let's take a break. All right, guys, round 2, race 1. James, Scott, Mark, Andy, and Dave. Everyone else out to Marshall. All right, guys, straight is closed. Straight is closed. Let's line them up. James, Scott, Mark, Andy, and Dave. That's a Rob move right there, Mark. All right, here we go. James on the tone, currently holding TQ 26-5-11. Scott, Mark, Andy, and Dave. So hot lap going to Scott, 1171. Sorry, James, that was... No, Scott, my mistake. Screen's flipping here. TQ markers beside Dave and Scott. Now just Dave and Andy. Waiting for one more lap, and I'm going to call this out. All right, no one on TQ. Dave at the top of the screen, 26-5-11. Scott, 25-5-01. Andy, 25-5-05. James, 5-07. Mark on the 24-5-12. Fast lap right now going to Andy, 11-10 as he moves up to the top spot. Andy, Scott, James, Dave, and Mark. Top 4 drivers on the 25. Andy is actually now on TQ after that last lap, 26-5-10. Yellow and orange buggy in the straight on TQ. James now on the 26 lap pace too. Also showing a TQ marker. Here's Andy hitting the loop, 26-5-07. Let's see where James sits here. 26-5-08. Scott in that number 3 spot showing a TQ marker, 26-5-10. Dave in that number 4 spot, 25-5-04. Mark, 23-5-01.
3 minutes left.
So Andy, James, and Scott, 1, 2, and 3, all showing TQ markers on that 26 lap pace. Dave on the 25, Mark on the 24. Fast lap still being held by Andy, 11-10. Scott dropped off a little bit, moved down to the number 4 spot. Dave now in that number 3. 2:20 left on the clock. James needs Marshall there. Andy still on TQ here, guys. Yellow and orange pulling into the straight. 26.502, the only one on a TQ. Dave now moves into the number 2 spot. Scott in the 3. Then we got James and Mark.
2 minutes left.
2 minutes left to go. Andy, 26.504. Dave, 26.511. Scott, 25.5 flat. James, 25.503. And Mark, 24.506. Andy holding this TQ, 26.505 with that fast lap, 11.10. Dave, 25.5 flat. James, 5 flat. Scott, 5.02. Getting down to our 1 minute mark here.
1 minute left.
James now holding fast lap, 10.97, currently sitting in the 3rd. Andy, 26.504. Dave, 26.511. James, 25.501. Scott, 5.05. Mark, 23.513. 20 seconds left to go. That is a B6. Took the hit. There's the tone.
Car 4
Mark,
done.
you are done.
Car 2
James
done.
is done.
Car 5
Scott
is done.
is done. 2 cars left. Here we
Car
go.
1 is done. Car 3
Andy
is done.
taking the TQ spot, 26.505. Dave came in second, 25.503. Scott, 503.9. James, 505 with the fast lap, 10.97. And Mark, 22.5 flat. Check. Check. Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan, you guys are up. All right, lineup is Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan. Drivers ready. Brett on the tone. John, Darren, Tim, Dylan. Last race, Dylan was on the top for the most part. Battery died. See if he makes it back out. Hot lap going to John, 1260. All right.
4 minutes left.
We've got Dylan on the top, 23.5 flat, Darren 5.05, Brett 22.503, John 5.05, and Tim on the 21. Fast lap right now going to Brett, 11.92. Dylan, Darren, Brett, John, and Tim. Brett now on the top here. Brett running 24.510. Dylan 23.5 flat. John 23.510. Darren on the 21.5 flat. Tim on the 21.505. Brett holding that fast lap 11.75. White buggy. Halfway point here, 2:30 left to go. Still Brett, Dylan, John, Darren, and Tim. Top two drivers, Brett and Dylan, both on the 24-lap pace. Here's Brett going down the straight, 24.503. Dylan, 24.506. John sitting that number 3 spot, 23.505. Darren, 22.5 flat, and Tim on the 21.
2 minutes left.
Will be a resort after this race. Nice save, Dylan. Minute 20 here left on the clock. White buggy is my leader out there. Brett running 24.502 with the fast lap, 11.75. John now in the number 2 spot, 23.508. Darren 23.512, and Tim on the 25.08. Thirty seconds left to go. Brett, John, Darren, and Tim. John putting down fast lap now, 11:66. There's the tone.
Car 3
Brett,
is
you
done.
are done. Darren is done. 2 buggies left here.
Car
There's
4 is
John.
done.
Tim is still alive. And there's
Car
Tim.
2 is
Brett
done.
taking that one 24.502. John came in second, 24.511 with the fast lap overall, 11.66. Darren, 22.504. And Tim on the 25.11. We'll do 10 minutes. There is going to be a resort. There it is up on the screen. 10-minute break. When we come back, it'll be Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan. So nothing's changed, really. Race 2, Andy, James, Scott, Dave, and Mark. All right, guys, round 3, Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan. All right, so... Oh, no, Darren's out too. Okay, Marshals are out. There's Mark. All right, lineup is Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan. Andrea, can you call a dog, please? Brett, John, Darren, Tim, and Dylan. Are you last? Yeah, maybe. Brett on the tone. John, Darren, Tim, Dylan. So, Brett, you know why John did that, right? Our little conversation outside earlier. You know that's a lowsy, right? John with the hot lap, 12-11. Oh, nice. All right, everyone in with 3 laps. Going to call it out on the next round. Just waiting for Dylan and Darren. Dylan at the top of my screen, 25.506, holding fast lap, 11.93. John in that number 2 spot, 25.510. Brett, 24.509. Darren, 23.504. And Tim, 25.01. John now at the top. It's now John, Brett, Dylan, Darren, and Tim. John going down the straight, currently on the 25 lap pace, 5:07. He's now holding fast lap, 11.90. 3:25 left to go. Brett in that number 2 spot. Here he is hitting the loop, 24.504. Dylan, 5:07. Darren, 23.503. Tim, 25.03. Ding.
Three minutes left.
Well, that was ugly, but worked out, I guess. Once again, guys, John is on the top of the screen. White, orange, and black. Yellow wheels in the back. Oh, he's... Yeah. I don't even know if I should be calling any of this out yet.
2 minutes left.
All right, John, 24.503. Brett, 5.05 right behind him. Dylan in that number 3 spot, 23.508. Darren, 22.501. Tim on the 19. Fast lap going to Brett, 11.54 as he bounces up to the top. Minute 30 left on the clock. It is Brett, John, Darren, Dylan, and Tim. Brett and John both 24.502. Nice Marshall job.
1 minute left.
Still going to be close. John got marshaled. Brett got marshaled. Brett 24.507. John 24.507. Sorry, Brett's 24.505. John now holding fast lap 11.51. Darren in that number 3 spot 22.5 flat. Dylan 5.07 and Tim on the 18. 35 seconds left to go. Double whammy for Tim. $15 seconds left to go. Who's it going to be, Brett or John? When I call your name, your race is over. Darren, you are done. Brett is done. Tim is done. Dylan's done. John is the only one left live.
Car 4 is done.
And Brett takes it 24.505. John 24.511 with the fast lap overall 11.51. Darren 22.5 flat. Dylan 21.5 flat. And Tim 18.5 flat. All right. Straight is now closed. Andy, James, Scott, Dave, and Mark. So Andy now holding TQ 26-505. Final qualifier. All right, here we go. Andy on the tone. James, Scott, Dave, and Mark. Hot lap going to Andy, 11:85. Puts up a TQ marker on his second lap. So does James. Of course, the two at the TQ marker, one gets marshaled, the other one hits the marshaled car. All right, James at the top, 26-510. Mark, 26-511. Andy, 25-507. Scott, 24-506. And Dave on the 22. Fast lap right now going to Andy, 11:40. He's currently sitting in the number 3 spot. Mark, James, Andy, Scott, and Dave. Mark, the only one now on the 26 lap pace. Hey, Darren, that's probably not the greatest spot to stay in, actually, where the milk crate is, just because they can't see the approach on the jump. All right, Andy back up on the top, showing a TQ marker, 26-504 with the fast lap, 11:20. Mark, 25-501. James, 5:02. Scott, 5:05. Dave on the 23-5 flat. Really close between second all the way down the fourth here. James sitting 25-5 flat in that number 2 spot. Let's see if he brings up to 26. He does, 26-510 behind Andy. And he puts down another fast lap, 11:14. Sitting 26-502 now, 2:25 left on the clock. Scott now sitting in that number 3 spot, 25-502. Mark, 5:05. Andy now 26-501. Let's see if he can get up to the 27. Holds at 26-501. Fast lap 11:12. James sitting that number 2 spot, 26-509. Mark 25-505. Scott 25-507. And Dave 24-506. Minute 35 left to go. Woo! Andy fell off TQ a little bit, 26-507 right now. James 509, then Mark 25-504, Scott 504, and Dave 24-502. 60 seconds left on the clock. .30 seconds left to go. It's now James at the top of the screen. James 26,507. Andy 25,501. Scott 504. Mark 504. Dave 24,501. James holding fast lap 11:04. There's the tone. Andy, you are done.
Car 5
Scott,
is done. Car 1
Dave,
is done.
here's
Car
James
2 is done.
and
Car
Mark.
4 is done.
So Andy's going to hold his TQ position, but James took it in the top of this one, 26,508 with the fast lap, 11:04. Andy came in 25.5 flat. Scott 5:03. Mark 5:04. Dave 24,501. All right, guys, we will take 10 minutes and then we will do the mains.
$12.5. $12.7. $12.0. $12.2. $12.3. $14.7. $19.6. $12.2.
$38.0.
$12.5. $11.9. $13.7. $13.7. 14-0, 12-0. Fourteen two, 17-9, 26-8, 14-2, 12-7, 13-7, 12-3, 13-7, 12-0, 14-0, 12-1, 13-7,
38.6,
28-5, 14-5, 11-4, 11-3, 12-3, Eleven two,
33.0.
Twelve seven. 11-2. 11-2. 11-3. 11-1. 11-1. 10-9. 12-2. 12-3.
'All right, we're going to get going with B main. Brett, John, Darren, Dylan, and Tim. One bump up. All right, guys, we're going to get you lined up. First car on the line, Brett's going to pull right down to that orange line down there. Actually, just, yeah. To the long line for Brett. Brett, John, and Darren, 1, 2, and 3. Then we have Dylan and Tim. He wouldn't notice until after the race started. It's okay. I have a delay in the start. Okay, Tim, here's your chance. You're starting at the back. Crank the radio, 140. All right. Driver's ready. Everyone on the tone. So we got Brett, John, Dylan, Darren, and Tim. Oh, look, nice move there by Dylan. Stealing the inside lane. Brett out front, 2.5 lead right now. 2, 3, and 4 tight together here. Here's Dylan, John, and Darren. Keep it nice and clean, guys. Have respect for the other drivers. If you take them out, stop and wait for them to go. 1 minute down, 4 minutes left to go. Brett going down the straight. Here comes 2 and 3. Dylan and John together. 2 seconds off the pace of the leader now. John waits. Looks like Darren's moving into that number 2 spot. That's the way it should be done. Thank you, John. Brett flips over now. Darren's going to be battling Brett for that number 1 spot. Tim, you got leaders coming up on you. Yeah, that works. 3:20 left to go. Dylan, 2 seconds behind. No, he just moved into second. Darren in the number 3 spot. John in the 4, leader down the straight. There goes Brett. Dylan, 2.2 seconds off of his pace.
3 minutes left.
Battle for third now, Darren and John. Dylan flipping over. He needs a marshal. That's going to drop him back. Darren now moves in the second. John now moves in the third. They are 5 seconds behind the leader. Brett on fire. Look at him go. John sitting in that number 2 spot. Remember, guys, white buggy is your leader. He just got jammed up. John was 5.5 seconds off his pace before that. Brett with the front flip stays out. Let's see how far back John is. John had a little fumble there. John 5 seconds behind still. Dylan sitting at number 3 spot. He is almost 3 seconds behind John. Then we got Darren in the number 4, Tim in the 5. 2 minutes here left to go. Fastest lap so far going to Brett. 11:93. Gotten a little fumble there. John closed the gap up. That means that 2 seconds behind. Get mixed up. John takes over the number 1 spot. Dylan now in the number 2 and Brett in the 3. Watch straight, guys. Stay tight to the pipe, tight to the pipe. There's about 2 seconds between first and second, maybe not even now. No, a second between John and Dylan. Brett sitting in the number 3 spot, 2.2 seconds behind, 1:10 left on the clock. Darren in that number 4 spot, Tim in the 5. Leaders down the straight. Dylan now holding fast lap with 11:90. 60 seconds left to go. Go. Dylan, after being marshal, drops back to third right behind Brett here. Brett now in that number 2 spot. Dylan making the move. Dylan now back in the second, 35 seconds left on the clock. Dylan holding fast lap with 11:89. They both fumble over the big table, so Dylan stays out in second on that one. 4 seconds behind the leader. 20 seconds left to go. Dylan closing the gap up here, 2.5 seconds behind John. We've got 6 seconds left on the clock. Oh, I don't know if they're going to make it. There's the tone. That is it. Dylan, you are done. Looks like John's going to win this one. As you guys hit the loop, good job. Nice racing. For B-Main, pretty good.
Car 2 is done.
So John taking the win on that one. Dylan had the fastest lap overall with 11:89. He took second place. Brett took third. Then we had Darren and Tim. Good job, guys. John getting the bump. So we only have 4 marshals for this race. But it is Andy, James, Scott, Dave, Mark, and John. John, you got enough battery for this? All right, once Mark goes down the straight, that is the last car down the straight. And let's line them up, get them on the lines. Andy, James, Scott, Dave, Mark, and John. Once again, Andy, James, Scott, Dave, Mark, and John. All right, Dylan, he's good. He's good. So, drivers, watch, because there is only 4 marshals out here for this one. Drivers ready. Everyone on the tone. Andy, James, and Scott. 1, 2, and 3. There's Mark, John, and Dave. Nice driving. Remember, guys, clean passes. Take the guy out. You stop. You open the door. Leave the door open and let them slide through if they're right on your tail. This is 6 minutes. Watch straight, guys. Clear. All right, Andy, down the straight is my number 1. Here's James sitting almost 2 seconds off his pace. Scott chasing him, only a half second behind. Mark right there with him, a second behind. James and Scott getting tangled up. Mark just cruising through there. Dave was going to try and do the sneak in on that one too. He lost out on it. So Mark moves into that number 2 spot. James now in the 3, Scott in the 4. Then we have John in the 5 and Dave. Andy, 5.5 second lead on the rest of the field right now. Here he is going down the straight. 4:40 left on the clock. James, 2.5 behind Mark. Holding 3rd right now. Scott, not far behind him, 2.5 behind him. John and Dave, same thing, 2.5. Dave probably the first one away with 3 seconds behind. James dropping off just a little bit, 6 seconds, or sorry, Mark, 6 seconds behind the leader. So if he made that up right there, he did. He's now 1.5 behind Andy. Andy holding fast lap with 11:13.
4 minutes left.
Pulled away just a little bit there, 2.2 seconds behind for Mark. On the pipe, James and him are battling it out. Do it in a clean way, guys. And the rest of the field, 2, 3, 4, and 5, not far behind. Mark flipping over. James going to move into that number 2 spot now. Andy loving it. Back to being 5.5 second lead on the rest of the pack. Scott sitting in that number 3 spot, only a second behind James. Mark only a second behind Scott. They get closer as they hit the loop. Here's 2, 3, 4. Mark putting it up on 2 wheels. Mark now dropping back behind John. John moves into that number 4 spot. Here we go, halfway mark here, getting down to the 3-minute mark. Here comes James hitting the loop. Let's see how far back he is. 5.8 seconds behind Andy. Scott only 1.2 seconds behind. John closing that gap up too. John now moves in the 3rd. Scott in the number 4 spot. Andy, James, John, Scott, Mark, and Dave. 2:30 left on the clock. John flips over, gives up his spot to Scott. Scott moves back to 3rd. Oh, leader flips over here now. James was loving this. We may see a battle between 1st and 2nd if he can close that gap up. Nope, not with the marshal. He's marshaled. Pack is still tight between 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Mark holding into that number 3 spot. John in the 4. We got Scott and Dave. 2 minutes left to go. James sitting in 2nd, 6 seconds behind the leader. Marking that number 3 spot, 4.5 seconds behind James. Behind him, we got John, 2.5 seconds behind Mark right now. 1:30 left to go. Andy's still holding the fast lap, 11:13. Everyone a little bit spread apart here now.
1 minute left.
60 seconds left to go. It is Andy, James, Mark, John, Scott, and Dave. Closest battles we got is between Mark, John, and Scott, which there's still a little bit of a gap. Oh, Mark getting marshaled. That might help John out here. Dylan with the fast marshal. John does move into that number 3 spot. 3 and 4 battling it out down the straight with the power. Mark had it there for a second until he hit the wall. 25 seconds left to go. So it's now John sitting in 3rd, Mark in 4th, Scott in the 5, and Dave in the 6. 15 seconds left to go. Mark and John are still the closest battle, 2.5 seconds apart. There it is. It's all over, guys. John, you are done. As you hit the loop, guys, your race is over. I got Scott and Dave left. Scott's still alive. Andy taking that one. 31 lap pace and the fast lap overall, 11:13. James coming in with 30 laps, 6:04. His fast lap, 11:29. John, 29 on a 6 flat with an 11:68 fast lap. Mark, 29.602 with an 11:40 fast lap. Scott, 29.611 with an 11:48 fast lap. And Dave, 28.607 with an 11:63 fast lap.